Skepticism destroys the skeptical enterprise. This is a monograph on the inherent foibles of skepticism and with it, an analytical critique of the skeptical enterprise along with its panoply of acts and methodologies. Skepticism is not just a philosophy, it is a way of thinking and dealing with the world around us. It is a very flawed enterprise hiding under a guise of intellectual reservedness. What the reader must be prepared for is the absence of authoritative supporting quotes, intricate experiments with corroborating peer reviews and statistical analysis to demonstrate the opinions expressed here have the support of the masses. This essay is a logical and analytical inquiry needing nothing more than the term itself and a concise, if not altogether universally accepted definition. So, let us attempt to be clear regarding what this author views to be skepticism. It is this we will be discussing. No other claim is made. Skepticism is, in a word, induction. In another word, phenomenology. To be doubtful, the skeptic has to be inductive in his or her approach. Analytics leaves no room for skeptical doubt. The skeptic must be a phenomenologist, because to rely on faith is to put oneself above and beyond doubt. But if you think reality is physically real and something is out there in the sovereign sense of the word, the only recourse you have is to observe what is out there, always knowing there is a possibility your observations will be refuted. A skeptic uses induction to refute the inductive enterprise of another skeptic. Skeptics are so skeptical of the possibility of absolute truth, he relies on the most error-prone method for ascertaining what is true. But then truth is not a term a skeptic ought to embrace. Skeptics are flesh machines, and as is the case with flesh machines generally, skeptics are limited to a physical view of things. Yet, what is more doubtful than that the human body can ascertain what exists outside of itself? And so, skeptics are often emotional, driven by feelings he or she cannot control. At its heart of the skeptic's difficulties is something we call the skeptic's paradox. Skeptics cannot maintain a skeptical position regarding the skeptical enterprise itself. Doubt is, after all, self-defeating. One cannot doubt one's doubt, and the more one doubts, the more one has to be absolutely convinced of the validity of these doubts. Who is more dogmatic than a skeptic demanding we doubt everything and everyone? What is worse for all of us is that skeptics seem to have gained the support of the empiricist. If we are to believe them, scientists begin their day clearing their mind of all conviction other than supreme and unwavering doubt. Beset by doubt about everything, scientists, at least professionally, assume nothing other than that empiricism is the only path to contingent truth. They know there is no way they can verify this belief. No experiment can be devised to demonstrate the scientific method is anything but a way to confirm what the skeptic assumes, namely that the only thing that can be scientifically proven to exist is physical reality. It is the certainty they have about what they know they cannot verify, the existence of a physical reality, that causes them to doubt everything within this physical reality. The skeptic starts off from a position of doubt, but he becomes a prisoner of his own certainty that doubt is the currency of epistemology. There are uncountable observations that no amount of observable evidence dissuades a bigot from. Bigotry is not a result of observation but of emotional reaction. Bigotry is immune from evidentiary proofs. One cannot argue with a bigot because bigotry is not the result of analytical or logical thought. Bigots are inductive, not deductive. But as with all bigots, it would take an infinity of examples to convince a bigotry that his bigotry is actually bigotry. That is the problem with the inductive method. In the end, there is always the possibility the class of observable things is tainted by the selection process. Induction leads to skepticism because the selection process is always prone to bias. Bigots are inherently prone to skepticism and skeptics are intrinsically favorable to the inductive method of determining truth. But induction creates an environment in which no amount of observation will lead to certainty. This is why the bigot can always claim his extrapolation is valid despite what others might consider to be countervailing evidence. But if no amount of evidence leads to absolute certainty and must always be accompanied by the realization that the potential for refutation exists, what is an interpretation based on but confirmation bias? Skepticism tells us no number of observations are sufficient to overcome skeptical doubt or the potential for refutation, therefore it is bias that determines one's selection of a proposition. Technically, if skepticism is a valid position, then one interpretation is as valid as any other interpretation. But surely if we watch the sun come up every morning, there is less reason to be skeptical about the possibility of a new day dawning. As we observe the days passing, are we not gathering empirical evidence that tomorrow will come? But no, the throwing of a dice that leads to 3 sixes is not evidence that the next throw will be a 6. Every throw gives us the same odds. But we might claim that a sunrise is not the throwing of a dice, then prove the claim. Prove yesterday increases the probability of tomorrow, or that the occurrence of today determines the same will happen tomorrow. A pattern does not carry with it a guarantee of its reoccurrence. The reality is, there is no reason for a natural law to exist because a law is just an observed pattern. The law simply recognizes a pattern, it does not dictate it. A trillion sunrises is no more significant than a throw of the dice. There is a principle derived from induction which tells us that past events do not guarantee future performance. The past does not guarantee the future nor dictate the outcome of any event. There is no guarantee a billiard ball will cause another ball to move in a predetermined trajectory. It has only been our experience to date. There are no guarantees. But skepticism hides a reality it cannot deny. People cannot be skeptical except when it suits them, and in ways that benefit them. Skepticism is not a way of life, but a ploy used on the gullible. We are skeptical about the other person's evidence, not our own. But no amount of observation will be sufficient to overcome the bias of our minds. The skeptical atheist will demand Christians be more circumspect in their certainty of God's existence. However, no one is permitted to doubt the validity of the naturalist worldview. Yet is the faith of an atheist in the doctrines of naturalism less biased than the faith of Christians? Where is the evidence for the claims of naturalists? How many observations will be sufficient to overthrow the certainty of a naturalist when only certain observations are considered evidence? Secularists think about the impact reality has on their sensory cells and they conclude that there has to be something out there. They hit a table, stub their toe, smell burning flesh, hear the screams, see the suffering they cause, and they taste what they eat, so it has to be real. Multiple observations all come together to confirm the reliability of the bodily senses. Everything else is excluded as being anomalous. Except there is no way to confirm that what the eye sees is what the eye sees, because we have only words to communicate and verify what is seen. Images do not have a method of calibrating deviance. I see a purple robe, what do you see? But the person has to speak English and know syntax and the definitions of the words used. But there is still no way to know if your purple is my purple or your robe is the same as what I have pictured in my visual cortex. We take it on faith, it is as we assume. Bigotry is natural to us, and even when we claim to be skeptics, we do not doubt what skepticism is or our ability to identify it. What do you do when you realize the purple robe image is the result of photons hitting the robe and bouncing to the optical nerves that send signals to the brain and the synapses of the cells in the visual cortex by means of the optical nerve? Confidence in what we see becomes problematical. The idea that our brain can faithfully recreate a four-dimensional picture of reality becomes little more than a leap of faith. If you think reality is real and is what you see, you are not a skeptic. Skeptics edit out all the experiences of savants, psychotics, Alzheimer patients and others to focus on the narratives of those who confirm what we feel, hear, see, smell, and taste represents reality. But the induction method gives us no verifiable confidence, and skepticism ought to make us more reticent about claiming we know or can learn what is real. In the end, skeptics are just bigots selecting out the narrative that reflects their preferences. It's never about evidence, it is about the value they put on certain interpretations. The claims of one trans woman outweighs all the evidence given by biologists, medical doctors, and religious leaders. In the end, the refusal to value other opinions equally is all there is of skepticism. When the philosophical language is pared away, all that remains of skepticism is bigotry. But if one wishes a more philosophical analysis, at the core of the skeptical enterprise is confirmation bias. Skepticism is a rationalization of one perspective. Skeptics are skeptical of logic and the deductive method because it leads to where they do not wish to go. Skeptics claim there is no truth because they have no truth, other than their unfounded claim that there is no absolute truth. As was mentioned above, skeptics can be skeptical about everything but their own ability to doubt what is true. Skeptics cannot doubt there is nothing that cannot be doubted. Of that they are certain, and they exhaust themselves proving that whatever truth is others find, the skeptic can and will doubt it. Skeptics doubt the existence of God because the existence of God does not confirm their bias. Skeptics are able to doubt the existence of God and that the evidence for his existence meets the threshold of absolute observational certainty, they say must be met. Meanwhile, science is based on the inductive method that makes doubt its centerpiece. There is no scientific proof that meets the threshold of absolute certainty, the threshold atheists expect Christians to reach. No amount of observational evidence passes the threshold at which refutation is not possible. That is the rule they live by. They are not asking for evidence for God, but evidence sufficient to exceed the threshold of possible refutation. But think of it, if skepticism is a valid philosophical position, it means there is no truth. If skepticism and the threshold of science are valid, all these disciplines leave us with, as tools for determining what is true, is observation. From our observations we utilize induction, but this is little more than legitimized bigotry. There is nothing in an actual observation that gives us a way to validate it. Induction based on observation does not lead to any truth and in fact is just a way to delegitimize the idea of truth. The key to understanding this system is to understand the power and importance of faith. Then understand the system as a method designed to legitimize and universalize doubt. If you can be made to doubt, you can be made to fear, because what you doubt you will learn to fear. When you fear you will look for a solution and this will be the state. But we have already demonstrated no one can doubt their doubts. Nor can we doubt logic or truth. The only thing we can truly doubt is our eyes and our observations. What we see or think we see can be questioned and can be doubted. No number of observations will make the reliability of the process less easy to doubt. All skepticism is based on induction and phenomenology. But this doubt about everything is universalized, as if the inductive method was the only path to the truth. The interesting thing is, the people who push materialism and the inductive method are the ones encouraging us to doubt our perceptions. But belief in God is not based on phenomenology nor induction. No number of observations will convince anyone that God exists. Nor will observation convince us the physical world is as we see it. This is skepticism, and it is the realization that the inductive method is flawed and will never proceed to a position of certainty. Yet, skepticism is inductive in its operation. Skepticism is prima facie absurd. Why develop a philosophy that is inherently non-substantiable? It is not that skepticism throws doubt on its own position, it forces the skeptic to make a leap of faith regarding the doubt-forming enterprise as first illustrated by Descartes, who managed to doubt everything but the process. Why develop a system for discovering the truth such as the inductive method, that can never come to a conclusive truth, regardless of how long the skeptic employs the process? What is the reason for developing a fact-finding methodology that ultimately proves there are no facts? Then does this in such a way that the process is rendered absolute in its unassailable infallibility. Is skepticism the only possible absolute in the universe? The co-joining of skepticism and the inductive method has created a destructive hybrid that destroys everything but doubt and a lingering fear of reality. What is certain, institutional doubt is neither a way to eliminate bigotry or develop objective truth. One can look at a race with racist eyes and never find a single thing to dissuade one of their position. The sample is always too small to dissuade an established position. We are witnesses to this fact with Trump derangement syndrome. It does not matter who Trump was before he ran for office or what we witnessed during his stay, the hate will always hate. But once we have all learned to doubt the evidence of our eyes, what is the payoff? What has been achieved when the threshold for refuting a position can never be reached? By demanding physical evidence as proof, when the evidence itself is subject of institutional doubt, and the findings of every inquiry are always contingent, we lose the power to choose. We are made dependent on experts and on some other system for decision-making. But step back a bit and look at where we are. The inductive method does not preclude bigotry. We must assume bigotry still exists in the secular or liberal system. But the system itself is incapable of making a commitment on anything. There is a fear of being committed, as commitment suggests a certainty one is not supposed to have. Secularists are prone to fear because there are no certainties. People are relatively easy to brainwash in this environment. Skeptics do not have anything substantial to hang on to, so they are influenced by fads and phases. But there needs to be more than emotional reactions to external stimulants, or the system would descend into chaos. There is something available to skeptics that is not objective in the scientific sense but is real in the subjective sense, that is our emotions. Skeptics will do what makes them feel good. But this strategy has limitations because to get an emotional high requires resources. To experience the thrill of skiing or a rock concert or psychotropic chemicals requires money. Money holds the key to unleash our emotions. Ultimately, this commitment to doubt leaves a liberal open to all kinds of outside influences. The only way the left can process between these options is how they make him feel. Liberals become slaves to their emotions. So the process that began by throwing doubt on the validity of logic and reason leaves the liberal with nothing but their endocrine system to make their choices for them.